Right, so welcome back to the engine strip down. As you can see, the block is now bare of everything, just a few little odd bits and pieces to take off. One thing to note, when you get knocking big ends, some of the blocks I've seen, I've actually got one in my scrap pile, they crack across here in a couple of places. Now I've got one that come out of an insurance write-off because a garage put another crank in it, big ends, had the crank reground, sorry, and big ends and mains and everything, and it still knocked, so the insurance company wrote it off. If the garage would have checked it first properly, they would have seen that the actual block was no good, so that's off down to the scrap heap. Here's the rest of the bits, all out. As before, I've left the pump attached to the top casing because I know the timing is spot on, so you can get them out with it on. Balance shaft, obviously, later balance shaft. The early pre-fly-by-wire balance shafts are a lot smaller, so again you can tell, you can notice a difference straight away. Oil filter housing, alternator, water pump, bottom balance shaft housing, with the gear that is on the front of the crank that drives the oil pump, and the oil pump is behind that little beauty, which I will take out later once I start to rebuild it, clean it, and show you how to replace the oil pump. They have two Woodruff keys in the crank. One of them, there we go, this little beauty, drives that gear, which then obviously drives the oil pump. I haven't mic'd them up, so I don't know if they're different, but just beware when you take them apart. That front main seal is in there, which is actually just started to leak, so obviously all seals get replaced. There's the rear casing for the crank with the rear main oil seal. That's not leaking, so lucky on that one. You'll notice all these little bags. A little tip I got told years and years ago when I was an apprentice: if you're unsure, then just get some little bags, and everything you take off for that item, put the nuts and bolts in the bag with it. Saves a lot of time when you're putting it back together, and also you know then that you ain't going to have none left over. So anyway, looking at the block, really happy with it. Good old block, so that will get cleaned up and I'll be reusing that. Here we go to the main bits. Pistons, 4 pistons. A bit of carbon on them, nothing to worry about. They're having new rings anyway. I will check the small ends, which are in there, later. Obviously there. These are the caps for the conrods. The small ends, as you can see, they've just started to pick up a little bit, but nothing to worry about at all. Now, to find out if you have a reground crank on the end, it's very hard to see with a camera, but it's got, there we go, STD means standard. So they've got standard shells in, put it out the right way, standard shells, so they have never had a reground, and they're the original shells. So I've quickly checked all of those, really happy. One crank, obviously, and a set of big ends. Again, take them all off, check them all. They've just started to pick up, so obviously she was due very, very soon. Again, on these, somewhere written on them, you'll see STD, which is not a sexually transmitted disease, but standard bearing. So again, never been reground on the big ends, which is on the mains, which is good. Later cranks have independent thrust washers, which go in the centre journal. Early pre-fly-by-wires and the early Pajeros, etc., they have the thrust washers fixed to the shell. I'm not 100% sure if they're interchangeable, but we won't risk it, we'll just get the right ones. Anyway, one crank, really happy. You can just see on a couple of the journals, maybe hard to pick up, it's just started to go a little bit blue, But what I will do is I will give this a really good clean up, and I will mic it up and make sure everything's okay in several places. So there's your two Woodruff keyholes. The back one drives the oil pump drive, the front one drives the timing belt drives and everything. So two separate Woodruff keys. Apart from that, what I'm going to do now is go and have a cup of tea, and then just start cleaning everything. The block's got to go back out for a really good clean out. I've left a few odd bits and pieces. That's a vacuum pipe that goes to the back of the alternator, won't worry about that. The plate, which normally leaks, which is behind the fuel pump, you can change these with the fuel pump on, but it is a little bit awkward. They have a tendency to leak, to have a stupid little rubber gasket behind them. I make my own paper gasket and fit that. In behind there are the balance shaft bearings there, and the balance shaft bearings for the bottom one, there's one there, and that's about it really. So there's only one bearing on each. Down here, I don't know if you can see them, these little ones, there's one on each cylinder. They are oil squirters. They squirt oil up into the bores underneath the piston. So if you are doing a rebuild, make sure you don't damage them. There's 4 of them. But apart from that, pleased with it. So time for a cup of tea. Obviously just quickie, there's a new head, or rebuilt head, polished and ported, just waiting for a few bits to go on it. There's all the other stuff, and some of it on the floor. So there's a bit of a junk hole in here at the moment, but hey ho, we all love a dirty workshop. Anyway, talk soon. Many thanks.